Hello. So in this video, we're going to talk about the phrase "in conclusion." Not everybody is as bothered about this phrase as I am, but personally, I am not a fan of the phrase "in conclusion." I think it's a very I don't mean this to sound as insulting as it's going to sound, but I think it's a very juvenile phrase to incorporate into an essay. And there's a couple of reasons for this. One is the phrase "in conclusion" does tend to be more common among emerging writers, emerging scholars, people who are just starting out, student writers, etc. And so it marks your writing as someone who is less confident in their scholarship. That's one of those things where it's kind of difficult to explain in a sort of objective way why it's a problem. It's more a question of the feel and the sets of associations that come along with particular approaches to writing. In the same way that, say, a 5-paragraph essay will, for most people, read like it was written by a high schooler. There's nothing inherently wrong with the 5-paragraph essay as a structure, but because it is commonly used by emerging writers, it tends to read like it was written by an emerging writer. So the same thing applies to "in conclusion." Because students tend to stick it in at the beginning of their conclusion paragraph, it kind of signals a lack of confidence. Part of the reason it actually signals a lack of confidence is because it effectively reads as one of two things. One is that you as a writer don't trust that your argument is now complete and you can wrap things up. So this is ideally how an essay should move, right? Is it moves from the beginning, where you start setting the stakes, set up the argument, include the thesis, etc., through the body that develops the argument, and then the conclusion wraps everything up. We should be getting to the conclusion at a place that feels natural, where it feels like the argument is made, it is complete. There's nothing more that needs to be developed about it. Therefore, we shouldn't really need the phrase "in conclusion," right? It should feel naturally like this is the place for a conclusion. This is where the argument is done. The argument is made. It is set. So that's one thing, is it signals a lack of confidence in the writing itself, in the structure of the essay and the completeness of the argument. The other thing that the phrase "in conclusion" can be taken to signal is that you have a lack of confidence in your readers, right? Your readers, it suggests, this is what we call a linguistic marker, right? It's a linguistic marker is a thing where you use a particular word or phrase in order to signal something. This, of course, signals this is the conclusion. Straightforward enough. But by putting that linguistic marker there, one implication may be that you don't trust the readers to recognize that what they're now getting to is the conclusion. It can be seen as insulting to the reader's intelligence. I don't trust that you recognize this as the conclusion, so I'm going to tell you that it's the conclusion. There's also just not that much real benefit to it. And that's sort of the thing at the end of the day, is the conclusion should stand on its own as its own structural portion of the essay that does its own work. It shouldn't really need to be marked in that way. So, all in all, it's better to avoid the phrase "in conclusion." It doesn't really add anything. It signals to the reader that you, as a writer, may lack confidence. It's going to read as relatively juvenile. I would just leave it out. And it's an easy thing, because typically the phrase "in conclusion" comes right at the beginning of the last paragraph. All you have to do is highlight that with your cursor and press delete.